الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All praise and thanks belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and may the peace and blessing of Allah be upon His servant and final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As to our followers, my dear respected brothers in Islam, you all know that we are in the month of Shaban, and this is the month that is just before Ramadan. Very important for a believer to be aware of this month and the activities and the events that happen in this month. And there are two major events that happen in this month. Number one, that the deeds are raised to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is a major event that happens in this month. And this is why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would fast this entire month. He would fast it all, from the beginning to the end. There are two narrations that are narrated an Aisha radiyallahu anha. One narration, she says that he used to fast the entire month, and another narration mentions that he used to fast the entire month except a few days. The idea is he would fast the vast majority of the month, and if he did break his fast, it was probably 1 or 2 days. And we said that he'd do so because the deeds are raised to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the hadith of Usama ibn Zayd radiyallahu anhu, Usama ibn Zayd radiyallahu anhu, he says that he would observe a difference in the attitude of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam during the month of Shaban. Yani Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would change completely in the month of Shaban, to the point where the companions who are always with him, they noticed a change. Usama ibn Zayd noticed a change, and he said to him, Ya Rasulullah, I have never seen you fast a month like you do of the month of Ramadan. Yani the month that he would completely fast is Ramadan, and then the next month he completely fasts, or almost completely fasts, is Shaban. This is a Sahabi noticing a difference in the attitude of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam when it comes to this month. For Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to him, explaining why he is fasting and why he has changed in this month. He says to him, ذَاكَ شَهْرٌ يَغْفَلُ النَّاسُ عَنْهُ بَيْنَ رَجَبْ وَرَمَضَانَ. He said to Usama radiyallahu anhu, this is a month in which people are heedless concerning. They are heedless about this month, the month that comes between Rajab and Ramadan. Number one, this is why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam fasted the month, because it is a month in which people are completely heedless of. Imagine this, he's saying this in the presence and among companions. He's saying people are heedless of this month. What does it mean that you're heedless in this month? It means you will find people walking around. No one is concerned that this is Sha'ban. No one has an effort to fast. No one is speaking about going home early, to sleep early, so that he can wake up some of the night and pray for Allah Azza wa Jal. No one is engaged in abundance of dhikr during the day and during the night. No one is putting this heart into motion and purifying it, preparing it for Ramadan. The majority of people would be like this. شَهْرٌ يَغْفَلُ النَّاسُ عَنْهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He said, وَلَا تَكُمْ مِنَ الْغَافِلِينَ. Don't you dare be from among those who are heedless. This is a command from Allah Azza wa Jal, commanding the believers to keep themselves far away from heedlessness, because heedlessness is worse than a person being in a state of sin. A sinner, the one who is sinning, knows that he's doing something wrong. So there is a kind of alarm in his heart ringing. Stop doing what you're doing and repent and seek Allah's forgiveness. But the one who is heedless, he's not even He's not even aware that he is in a dangerous state. So as a result, he becomes worse. He's worse than a sinner. A sinner is alert, conscious of what he's doing. He comes out very soon and he makes a tawbah, but the heedless person, he is drowning in heedlessness. So, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he fasts Sha'ban, he is teaching us that the best thing to do to keep yourself far away from a state of heedlessness is to fast. And the fasting is the longest form of worship we have ever been taught. As-salat, and you pray. How long do you pray? No one will do a worship as long as fasting. Not even Al-Quran or not even dua. You will never sit and make dua for those 8-10 hours that you're fasting. No one will sit and read Quran for this many hours. And no one would pray the night for this many hours. The longest worship is fasting. And so as long as you're engaged in a long worship, you're saved from heedlessness. So this is why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would fast a month. Second reason he mentions in the hadith, he says, وَهُوَ شَهْرٌ تُرْفَعُ الْأَعْمَالُ فِيهِ إِلَى رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ فَأُحِبُّ أَنْ يُرْفَعَ عَمَلِي وَأَنَا صَائِمٌ. He said to Usama ibn Zayd, he said to him, and this is a month in which the deeds are raised to Allah Azza wa Jal. And I want for my deeds to be presented before Allah Azza wa Jal while I'm in a state of fasting. Because the one who's in a state of fasting, when your deed is going up to Allah Azza wa Jal, it has a better chance of being accepted since you are engaged in a worship. You're humble, you're weak, you're drained from your energy by the end of the day. This is the reality of a fasting person. So it incredibly humbles this slave, and as a result, it makes his record more likely accepted عند Allah Azza wa Jal. My brothers in Islam, وَهُوَ شَهْرٌ تُرْفَعُ الْأَعْمَالُ فِيهِ. Our deeds going up to Allah Azza wa Jal is of three types. There is a daily record that goes up to Allah Azza wa Jal. That is at the time of Fajr, at the time of Asr. So this is 2 times a day in where the deeds go up to Allah Azza wa Jal. These are the angels that come down and they substitute with the angels that are with us at Asr, and those that are with us at Fajr, they are substituted again. And the deeds go up to Allah Azza wa Jal. Then there is a weekly raise of deeds, and that is Mondays and Thursdays. The deeds go up to Allah Azza wa Jal. This is why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would fast Monday and Thursday, because the weekly raising of deeds happens on Monday and Thursday. So if your deeds are presented to Allah while you are fasting, it's a good chance that the goodness in it is accepted and the bad in it is forgiven and removed. And then there is a yearly rise of deeds to Allah Azza wa Jal. And that happens in Shaban, when, Allahu A'lam, a good amount of ulama mentioned it happens after the 15th of Shaban. I'll tell you why, but focus with me here. A yearly record goes up in Shaban. 360 or so days, an entire year. How many of them did you fast? That's going up to Allah Azza wa Jal. How many of them did you read Quran in? How many of them did you pray Salat al-Fajr and the rest of the prayers in them? Are you ready for that record to be raised to Allah Azza wa Jal? This record, if it was given to you, would you be happy of it? Would you be happy about your own record? Wallahi, most of us would be ashamed of our book. If I made you a judge of your own book before Allah Azza wa Jal, if you were a judge for your own book and record, would you be happy with it or not? But the good news is that Allah Azza wa Jal's mercy upon us is more than our mercy upon ourselves. So the fact that Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who judges, it is better than you and I judging our own selves. Alhamdulillah, upon the mercy and the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal, it requires a little bit of effort, my brothers, from your end. Fast as many days as you can, and keep away from heedlessness. Engage in dhikrullah Azza wa Jal. Most importantly, seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. These deeds are going to go up. They could be the reason for why you're granted Al-Firdaus Al-A'la. They could be a reason for why you earn the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. And that could be opposite as well. Allahu A'lam. Everyone is different. We don't know. But we hope goodness from Allah. And we have good thought in Allah Azza wa Jal. And that is the first major event that happens. The deeds are going up. The second major event that happens during this month, that is collected in the authentic ahadith, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, يَطَّلِعُ اللَّهُ إِلَى قُلُوبِ الْعِبَادِ لَيْلَةَ النُّصْفِ مِنْ شَعْبَانِ فَيَغْفِرُ اللَّهُ لِجَمِيعِ خَلْقِهِ إِلَّا لِمُشْرِكٍ أَوْ مُشَاحٍ. This is the second major event that happens, and it happens more specifically on the middle of Shaban, the middle night of Shaban, 15th night of Shaban, which is this Monday, yani tomorrow night. There's nothing extra and special of worships that is to be conducted during this night. And it is not a night to wake up and pray it if you are not a person that is regular upon the night prayers. There's nothing. Otherwise, if you have a routine of worship at night, you continue this, no problems. But this is the second major event that happens. The hadith says, يَطَّلِعُ اللَّهُ. And this is a hadith that has been authenticated by a number of scholars. يَطَّلِعُ. Allah Azza wa Jal overlooks the hearts of His servants and slaves. The word يَطَّلِعُ is a unique word. This word, it's often used in courts, in a court setting. They say that اطلعت المحكمة على الأوراق فقررت. The court overlooked. The court looked, meaning اطلعت, meaning they had a deep look into something. They studied even the minutest of details and evidences. This is اطلع. And then afterwards, they made a verdict and they made a ruling. The word يطلع Allah, meaning there is an intense observation and a look. There is a microscopic look onto the heart of the servants. And usually, after looking, a judgment is made. After the verb اطلع, there is a judgment that is made. Allah Azza wa Jal looks at the hearts of the servants. Allah Azza wa Jal is always looking at the heart of the servant. And He knows the reality of what's in it 24/7. Every moment of the day and the night. But on this night, there is a special observance to the heart. What is the verdict? Because we said after al-ittila' there must be a verdict from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. The verdict is that يَغْفِرُ اللَّهُ لِجَمِيعِ خَلْقِهِ. That's the verdict, that Allah Azza wa Jal completely forgives His servants. There is a narration that mentions that Allah Azza wa Jal forgives يَغْفِرُ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ. He forgives the believing slaves of His. That's the verdict. Allahu Akbar. And this is why I said to you before, the ulama rahimahumullah said that the deeds are raised to Allah after 15th of Shaban. Because on the night of the 15th is a complete forgiveness for the believers. So afterwards, when the deeds are raised, they are raised while you are in a state of purity. The heart has been purified. Now, as Ibn Rajab rahimahullah mentioned and others, whatever the case is, a believer is always conscious of the state of his heart and continuing efforts in purifying this heart of his. Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to see this heart. Tomorrow night, Monday night, the 15th night of Shaban. So the question is, are we ready? Is your heart ready to be displayed before Allah Azza wa Jal? Is it or not? The heart should be clean from a shirk, major and minor. You clean it by saying, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an ushrika bika wa ana a'lam wa astaghfiruka lima la a'lam. This is a dua that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam taught Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu. And he said to him, shall I teach you something? That Allah Azza wa Jal would wipe away every form of shirk that resides in the heart. And he taught him this dua. For your heart to be presented before Allah, you need to get it ready. Remove every ounce and every whatever it is of shirk within it with this dua. Also, it needs to be cleaned from major and minor sins. It needs to be cleansed. And the best way to clean a heart from its major and minor sins with al-istighfar. Astaghfirullah. Wallahi, one astaghfirullah, one. Just one. But it comes from a sincere, honest heart. It is enough to wipe an entire record of bad deeds, including a shirk. Allah Azza wa Jalla in Surah Al-Ma'idah, when He spoke about Ahlul Kitab and their commitment upon a shirk and worshipping others besides Allah, He advised them and He called them to what? He said, أَفَلَا يَتُوبُونَ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَيَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. Meaning Allah Azza wa Jal is teaching us that at-tawbah wal-istighfar is enough to wipe away the major sin of a shirk. So the heart, you're going to prepare it with al-istighfar, an abundance of istighfar. And the heart is also prepared by filling it in with goodness, filling the heart with goodness, بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ, by reading the Quran. This is why the month of Shaban is also known as Shahrul Qurra. It's known as the month of Quran. It is. But Salaf rahimahumullah used to have incredible stories and relationship with the Quran during the month of Shaban. So that when the month of Ramadan comes, they continue in their recitation of the Quran. You know, there's a lot of people that begin Ramadan with the beginning of the Quran. What's the vast majority of people? When Ramadan enters, they begin with the first juz. But this isn't, it wasn't a practice of those of the past. It wasn't in this manner. There's no problem to begin Ramadan with the beginning of the Quran. But the practice of the people of the past is that their Quran would begin to, they would excel and give it incredible amount of time from Sha'ban. So that when Ramadan comes, Sha'ban and Ramadan were like 2 months in concern for a person's relationship with the Quran. So when Ramadan comes, they're continuing wherever they had stopped the night before the night of the first night of Ramadan. This is what it was. Now, so Allah Azza wa Jalla is going to overlook this heart. He's going to see this heart. He will observe this heart and forgive all the believers, except for 2 types of people. He said, لِمُشْرِكْ أَوْ مِشَاحٍ. لِمُشْرِكْ, for a person who has committed a shirk. Such people do not deserve the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jalla. You cannot earn Allah's forgiveness with shirk residing in the heart. Forgiveness is only given to al-muwahhideen, those who have accepted one Lord and worshipped one Lord. This is a person that is deprived from the forgiveness of Allah Azza wa Jal. And the second type, he said, أو مشاحن. A mushahin comes from the word shahan. Shahan is that his heart is charged up. A mushahin is a person who hates the companions. A mushahin is a person who hates Sunnat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Also included a mushahin is the person who is upon bid'ah and innovations. This is a mushahin because the one who is upon innovations, meaning he is opposed and against Sunnat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Also included in a mushahin is a person who holds hatred, jealousy in his heart against other believers. A person who has arrogance in his heart against other believers. These are all forms of mushahin, and all of them are deprived of this complete forgiveness until the mushrik becomes a mu'min, and until this mushahin cleans his heart up from all these evil, nasty traits and characteristics. Then and only they earn complete forgiveness. Even these are 2 things you're supposed to be working on. Clearing the heart from a shirk. And we said how that is the case. Alhamdulillah, al-mu'min is a mu'min. And clearing the heart from its evil traits. Clearing it. No one here could say, I don't have arrogance in my heart. No one. Could anyone say that? Allah, no one. No one could say, my heart is clean from arrogance 100%. And I guarantee it. No one will do this. And no one can guarantee that his heart is clean from jealousy and hypocrisy. If we have narrations about Umar radiallahu anhu being worried about being from the hypocrites, after that, who is it the one that can sit and guarantee for himself that he doesn't have these kind of traits in his heart? For this is why it is very important to clear the heart from this by making dua to Allah Azza wa Jal to cleanse you from these illnesses. The sicknesses of the heart are much worse than the sicknesses of the body. And if a person was to be sick in his body, you all see the attitude of how quick he rushes to medication and to doctors and to so on and to look after his health, and that's all right. But if you only had, and we only had that same attitude when the heart becomes ill and sick and diseased, because the sickness of the heart is much worse than the sickness of the body. The sickness of the heart may lead a person to destruction and ruin and a displeasure of Allah Azza wa Jalla and a barring from the forgiveness of Allah. And the sickness and the illness of the body is actually a purification for a person. Wipes away his sins, raises his record, elevates him in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So you need to understand which one is more important of the sicknesses and work on it. We said al-istighfar caters for all things. Al-istighfar caters. If there is hatred against another believer, rush to fix it as well. Rush to fix it. As long as hatred does not exist in the heart against another believer, then a person is fine. Doesn't mean you have to befriend everyone. You might have a problem with someone over an issue, over rights that he owes you, over whatever it is of all the matters that are among the people. But hatred. A believer cannot hate another believer. Because a believer loves what Allah loves, hates what Allah hates. Allah Azza wa Jal loves the believers. So as a result, a believer must love others, must love the believers. And he might have an issue with him. He can deal with that either in this worldly life in an appropriate manner or with Allah Azza wa Jal on the Day of Judgment. So clear the heart, clear it. Allah Azza wa Jal does not allow for believers to have hatred for one another. This is not allowed. Not allowed. You might even be confused and recall the state and the case of Wahshi radiyallahu anhu. You might say, there's Wahshi. Who did Wahshi kill? Hamza, the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then he made the tawbah wa istighfar and he moved away from that sin. And then the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to him, إن استطعت أن تغيب وجهك عني فافعل. If you can keep your face away from me, then keep it away from me. I don't want to see it. And you might say, there it is. There's the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam couldn't stand seeing a believer. No, that's not the case. That is completely misunderstood, this hadith. The correct understanding is that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is a human being. Just like any other human being, he has emotions. So when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, out of mercy, out of mercy for Wahshi, he said to him, keep your face away from me. Because if I see you, ya Wahshi, I will remember my uncle. And if I am hurt a little bit, that is big punishment for you, ya Wahshi. Because you hurt the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. For as a mercy, he said to him, keep your face away from me, so I do not recall the incident and ascribe it to you. Then if I got angry or some form of emotion kicked in because of the death of my uncle, you're going to cop it a lot. It was mercy from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Otherwise, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is an example in this. He loved all his companions. He loved every believer. Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran, He teaches us that true believers from among their dua is to say, وَلَا تَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِنَا غِلًّا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. O Allah, do not place in our heart ghil, against those who have believed. Al-ghil comes from the word ghal, al-aghlal. Al-aghlal are like chains. Don't allow our heart to be chained with hatred and animosity and jealousy towards another believer. Not allowed. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam forbid the believers that they boycott one another for more than 3 days. Any worldly issue you have, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is teaching you that it may be resolved in 3 days. Most definitely. You've got 3 days to boycott, not give salam and do whatever you like in 3 days. Cut him out for 3 days. You can do so. Why 3 days? Allah Azza wa Jal knows that any problem as big as it is can be solved in 3 days. And if a boycotting exceeds 3 days, you know what that means? That means that a person's heart is attached to materialistic matter. And he preferred this worldly life over what Allah Azza wa Jal has legislated of relationship between the believers. So it's not allowed to boycott over 3 days. And how do we cut the boycott? With Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, or anything that the people culturally accept as that there is no boycott left, except for a person who boycotted someone on religious grounds and thought that this would be an effect within this person. He doesn't pray, let's boycott him, maybe he'll pray. then that could go over 3 days. There's no issue in that. But this is the idea, al-mushahin. Forgiveness is held back from a mushahin. So, yani, deal with these issues right now. Fix them in hope that Allah Azza wa Jal grants you forgiveness and accepts your deeds and allows them to be a reason for why you are forgiven and admitted into the paradise and a reason for your acceptance. If that's the case, then you will find yourself very ready for Ramadan. Ramadan will come in, the heart is pure. This is the wisdom of Allah Azza wa Jal for why these two events happen in the month of Shaban, so that the heart is prepared and it's ready for Ramadan. Ramadan is another story. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal that He accept our good deeds. We ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala that He forgive our sins and our shortcomings. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He accept our gathering and that He allow us to witness Ramadan. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to enable us that we worship Him in Ramadan. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept the deeds of what we do during Ramadan. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us acceptance and forgiveness and mercy and His pleasure and to admit us into the highest levels of the paradise. إنه ولي ذلك والقادر عليه وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.